amidst the tranquil beauty of Shropshire, England, unfolded a narrative of sorrow and despair that left a lasting impact on an entire community. At the center of this narrative was Georgia Williams, a bright young soul whose aspirations were tragically extinguished by an incomprehensible act of cruelty. Georgia, with her boundless energy and dreams, embodied the essence of youth's vitality and optimism. Yet, beneath her cheerful demeanor lay shadows of turmoil that would eventually eclipse her promising future. Georgia Williams entered the world on September 17, 1995, in Telford, Shropshire, England. Growing up in a tight-knit family with her parents Lynette and Steve Williams, alongside her older sister Scarlett, Georgia's upbringing was filled with love and support. From a young age, Georgia exhibited a compassionate nature, always eager to lend a helping hand and ensure the happiness of those around her. However, this admirable quality would eventually become a vulnerability. Despite facing bullying during her middle school years, Georgia's transition to high school marked a significant turning point. She found herself embraced by a circle of friends, becoming a popular and beloved figure within the school community. Her compassionate nature and leadership skills were evident as she ascended to the role of head girl. Alongside her academic pursuits, Georgia pursued her passion for service by training as an air cadet, nurturing dreams of serving as an RAF paramedic in the future. Upon reaching 17 years old, Georgia secured a position at a local petrol station, where she quickly established rapport with her colleagues. Among them was Jamie Reynolds, a 22-year-old man who appeared withdrawn and marginalized within the group. Moved by her compassionate disposition, Georgia extended a hand of friendship towards him, determined to alleviate his sense of isolation. Through her efforts, Jamie gradually integrated into the social fabric of their workplace, joining in group activities and forging connections with his peers. As time passed, Jamie found himself developing affection for Georgia, recognizing her as the sole individual who had shown him kindness and believed in his potential. Fueled by hope, he began to entertain the possibility that Georgia might reciprocate his feelings. Encouraged by this belief, Jamie summoned the courage to express his sentiments to Georgia, expressing his desire to pursue a romantic relationship with her, even envisioning the prospect of becoming her boyfriend. However, Georgia, mindful of Jamie's emotions, gently declined his advances, conveying her reluctance to embark on a romantic entanglement and emphasizing her commitment to preserving their friendship. Despite his disappointment over Georgia's lack of romantic interest, Jamie appeared to accept her decision and endeavored to maintain their friendship. However, beneath the surface, a disturbing obsession and sinister fantasy began to take root within him. During a shift together at the petrol station, Jamie confided in Georgia about his dissatisfaction with his current circumstances. Expressing a desire to abandon his job at the petrol station and pursue his passion, Jamie hinted at aspirations of forging a career aligned with his interests. Eager to offer her support to Jamie, Georgia engaged him in a conversation to explore his hobbies and passions. Learning of Jamie's interest in photography, Georgia seized the opportunity to encourage him to pursue it as a potential career path. Enthusiastic about the idea, Jamie requested Georgia's assistance in crafting a professional portfolio and proposed her as his inaugural model. Honoring her commitment to their friendship, Georgia agreed to assist, and together they scheduled a photo shoot for Sunday, May 26, 2013. The arrangement entailed Georgia and a few mutual friends convening at Jamie's parental residence for the photo shoot. As Sunday approached, Georgia found herself torn between conflicting obligations. With her family hosting a barbecue and her long-unseen grandparents in attendance, Georgia contemplated cancelling the photo shoot at the last minute. However, mindful of Jamie's reliance on her and unwilling to disappoint him, Georgia ultimately resolved to honor her commitment. Assuring her family that she would only be a brief 5-minute drive away from Jamie's residence, Georgia planned to swiftly capture a few photographs before rejoining her family. In doing so, she aimed to fulfill her obligations to both her friend and her family, ensuring that neither party would be let down. On that particular day, Georgia swiftly prepared herself, styling her hair and applying makeup before donning jeans and a leather jacket. As she left home at 7:30 p.m., her father complimented her, remarking on her beauty and likening her appearance to Sandy from the movie Grease. With her family anticipating her prompt return, Georgia embarked on her journey. However, as the hours passed without her arrival, concern began to grow among her loved ones. Initially, her mother dismissed the delay, assuming Georgia had become engrossed in the photo shoot or socializing with friends. Sending a text to inquire about the photo shoot's conclusion, her mother received a response from Georgia, indicating that the photo shoot had ended some time ago and that she was spending time with friends, suggesting she might return home late. Unperturbed by the exchange, Georgia's mother interpreted the text as typical, noticing the customary trio of kissy face emojis that often punctuated her daughter's messages. Given Georgia's responsible nature, her mother harbored no suspicions of trouble. As the night progressed, Georgia's parents retired to bed, assuming she would return home by morning. However, upon awakening the next day, their unease mounted upon realizing Georgia's continued absence. Concerned, her mother reached out to her via text at 6:30 a.m., seeking an explanation for her prolonged absence. It wasn't until 7:30 a.m. that a response arrived, claiming Georgia had stayed over at a friend's house and her phone battery was dwindling. She reassured her mother that if she didn't respond further, it was due to her phone's impending shutdown. Unbeknownst to Georgia's mother, these messages were not authored by her daughter, setting off alarm bells as the situation grew increasingly ominous. On May 27th, Georgia's parents anticipated her return home after a music festival. However, when she failed to arrive, they assumed she had gone directly to the festival from her friend's house. Nevertheless, they expected her back by the following morning, as she had eagerly awaited her first driving lesson scheduled for that day. As the night wore on without Georgia's return, her parents grew increasingly anxious. Waiting up late into the night yielded no sign of her. With panic setting in, they reached out to relatives and friends, hoping for any information about her whereabouts. Yet, despite their efforts, no one had seen or heard from Georgia in days, deepening their concern and uncertainty. When Georgia failed to arrive home the following morning for her eagerly anticipated driving lesson, her family took immediate action, reporting her disappearance to the police. Desperate for answers, they provided authorities with all the information they could gather. However, their knowledge was limited to Georgia's attendance at a photo shoot at Jamie Reynolds' residence, with no further details about her whereabouts or companions after that point. In response, the police launched an investigation, focusing their attention on Jamie Reynolds. What they uncovered about him sent chills down their spines, revealing disturbing details that raised further concerns about Georgia's safety. Back in 2008, Jamie found himself in police crosshairs after an incident involving the attempted strangulation of a teenage girl. Despite the gravity of the situation, law enforcement opted for a cautionary approach, issuing Jamie a warning and allowing him to walk free without charges. However, when authorities stumbled upon this troubling episode in Jamie's past, their suspicions intensified. With Jamie emerging as the prime suspect in Georgia Williams' disappearance, police wasted no time in paying him a visit. Arriving at his residence, they encountered silence upon knocking on the door, compelling them to take more drastic action. Resorting to forced entry, they combed through the premises but found no trace of Jamie. Thus, a frenzied manhunt ensued as authorities intensified their efforts to track down the elusive suspect. After thorough inquiries at the petrol station, it became evident that none of their co-workers had encountered Jamie or Georgia. Their absence from their shifts raised significant alarms as they deviated from their usual routine. Although Jamie's parents were unreachable due to their vacation, they provided authorities with crucial information regarding the registration of Jamie's van. Armed with this vital lead, police across Shropshire promptly disseminated alerts to law enforcement agencies nationwide, urging them to be on high alert for Jamie's van. Before long, authorities tracked Jamie down in Glasgow, Scotland, a staggering 208 miles from his home. His sudden departure from the country sent shockwaves, serving as a glaring indicator of suspicious behaviour. On May 30th, Glasgow police apprehended Jamie Reynolds at a modest hotel, acting on suspicions of kidnapping. Taken into custody without delay, he faced immediate interrogation regarding Georgia's whereabouts. However, Jamie maintained ignorance of her location, offering no helpful insights to investigators. Subsequently, he was escorted back to Shropshire for further questioning. As Georgia's loved ones anxiously awaited updates, they received disheartening news regarding the investigation's progress. The grim outlook devastated the family, amplifying their anguish. With Jamie now detained as the primary suspect, law enforcement seized the opportunity to scour his residence for any pertinent evidence thoroughly. Amidst the search, authorities stumbled upon a camera containing an SD card. However, Their hopes of uncovering vital clues were dashed upon discovering that all files had been systematically deleted, leaving investigators grappling with yet another frustrating setback. The camera underwent forensic examination at the police station, where experts diligently worked to retrieve the deleted files. Upon successful recovery, the retrieved data delivered a chilling denouement to the investigation. Among the recovered files were several images captured on the day of the photo shoot, offering a haunting glimpse into Georgia's final moments. The initial photographs depicted Georgia in seemingly ordinary poses at the outset of the photo shoot, confirming her presence at Jamie's residence that fateful day. Despite her outward appearance of contentment and compliance, it was evident that Georgia remained oblivious to the sinister intentions lurking beneath Jamie's facade. Tragically, she unwittingly walked into a perilous situation, unaware of the impending danger that ultimately befell her. As authorities sifted through the images, the tone grew increasingly grim and unsettling. Subsequent photographs revealed a harrowing sequence of events, portraying a distraught Georgia stripped of her clothes, standing vulnerable atop a red recycling bin, her hands seemingly bound behind her with a hanging rope ominously overhead. Tragically, the footage captured Jamie Reynolds' heinous acts as he callously filmed Georgia's final moments, depicting her futile struggle for breath. Shockingly, he proceeded to engage in despicable acts of necrophilia, violating her lifeless body in various rooms of the house, including his parents' bed. To compound the horror, Jamie documented his depravity with hundreds of additional photographs, showcasing Georgia in degrading positions. He callously stripped her of her jewelry, preserving them as grotesque trophies of his heinous crime. The police relentlessly scoured Jamie's residence, unearthing a staggering collection of 16,800 graphic photographs and 72 distressing videos. These explicit materials depicted unimaginable acts of violence, including sexual assault and snuff films showcasing torture and murder. Shockingly, it became apparent that Jamie himself was actively engaged in the creation of his snuff film, a chilling revelation. In a disturbing admission, he even confessed to deriving pleasure from acts of strangulation. Alarmed by their son's dark fascination, Jamie's parents abruptly cut short their vacation to meet with the authorities. During their conversation, they disclosed that Jamie had been exposed to this disturbing brand of ultra-violent pornography since he was just 14 years old. It is conceivable that his exposure to such content could have occurred even earlier, though their intervention came about when they discovered his activities. As they were unable to confiscate his laptop since he required it for school, they reached out to the internet provider and arranged for access to certain websites to be blocked. Nevertheless, at the age of 14, he independently contacted the internet provider and secured his own private Wi-Fi by making the payment, ensuring that his parents remained unaware of his continued access to these websites. When his parents initially discovered him viewing these videos, they grew alarmed and informed the police and child protective services. However, they were informed that no action could be taken as viewing such content was not deemed illegal. During the investigation, law enforcement discovered a collection of notepads containing 40 distinct narratives penned by Jamie. These stories revolved around the themes of inflicting harm, sexual assault, and the killing of women. Additionally, it was uncovered that Jamie had scoured social media platforms, printing and marking images of young girls with nooses around their necks. Among the narratives was one titled "Georgia Williams in Surprise," mirroring the tragic events that befell Georgia. Authorities suspect that this particular narrative may have been a premeditated plan, conceived from the outset to be actualized. Jamie initiated the writing process in January, completing it a mere 3 weeks before the murder occurred. Jamie stubbornly withheld any information regarding the whereabouts of Georgia's body, vehemently maintaining his innocence. Faced with his refusal to cooperate, investigators embarked on a painstaking journey to retrace Jamie's movements from the Monday morning following Georgia's murder. Their investigative trail commenced at the petrol station, where surveillance footage captured Jamie refueling his vehicle. Little did anyone know at the time that Georgia's lifeless body lay concealed in the back of his van. Following the fuel stop, Jamie embarked on a journey spanning 60 miles, eventually arriving at a movie theater. Remarkably, he callously abandoned Georgia's remains in the van, parked within the theater's lot, before proceeding inside to indulge in a film screening. In a disturbing turn of events, Jamie's actions at the movie theater represented his twisted attempt to fulfill his desire to take Georgia out on a date albeit in a macabre and horrifying manner. However, law enforcement lost track of Jamie following his departure from the theatre, prompting authorities to issue a public appeal for information regarding his whereabouts. Fortunately, this appeal yielded results, with individuals coming forward to report sightings of Jamie's van in the vicinity of the Nanty Garth mountain pass near Wrexham. This area, abundant with dense woodland and treacherously muddy terrain, served as the backdrop for Jamie's attempt to evade capture. Recollections of Jamie and his van were vivid among locals, particularly due to an incident where his vehicle became mired in mud. Good Samaritans had intervened to help extricate it from the muck. Acting on this crucial tip, law enforcement ventured into the wooded area where Jamie had been spotted. Tragically, it was in this secluded setting that they made the grim discovery of Georgia's unclothed body. Following the recovery, Georgia's remains were transported back to Shropshire. A subsequent post-mortem examination revealed that Georgia had succumbed to asphyxiation, likely resulting from pressure applied to her neck by a ligature. Additionally, forensic analysis uncovered bruising on her back, indicative of Jamie having forcefully pressed her downward using his knee, exacerbating her helplessness and suffering. Despite steadfastly maintaining his innocence and denying any involvement in her murder, Jamie's stance took a dramatic shift on the inaugural day of the trial in December 2013. Without warning, he opted to rise and plead guilty to all charges leveled against him. In a poignant moment, Georgia's father addressed the court, articulating the enduring anguish he and his wife bore from the haunting image of their daughter's lifeless body, lying in the solemn confines of the hospital's chapel of rest, an indelible scar etched upon their souls for eternity. Throughout the trial, revelations surfaced regarding Jamie's prior brushes with the law. In 2008, he had attracted police attention, receiving what the judge deemed a final warning, following an unsettling incident involving the confinement of another 17-year-old girl in his residence, a harrowing precursor to the tragedy that befell Georgia. In 2011, he found himself under scrutiny once more after an incident where he recklessly reversed his car into that of a girl who rebuffed his romantic advances. Despite this alarming behavior, the case was eventually closed. However, the judge, Mr. Justice Wilkie, did not mince words, labeling Jamie a sexual deviant and expressing grave concerns about his potential to escalate to become a dangerous serial offender. Consequently, Jamie was handed a whole life term, a sentence reserved for the most heinous of crimes, ensuring he would spend the rest of his days behind bars without the possibility of parole. This marked Jamie as the 46th individual to receive such a sentence, setting a grim record as the youngest in history to be condemned to a whole life term. Justice Wilkie's remarks during sentencing painted a chilling portrait of the events, underscoring the profound anguish inflicted upon Georgia. He emphasized the torturous nature of her ordeal, highlighting Jamie's twisted fixation with violent and sadistic pornography, culminating in a grotesque display of power over his victim as she faced a harrowing demise. Jamie Reynolds bowed his head in shame as Georgia's grief-stricken parents and sister listened to the harrowing details of her tragic demise and the horrors she endured at his hands. The courtroom was filled with unbearable tension as the jury was confronted with the gruesome images depicting Georgia's final moments, prompting her devastated family to flee in anguish. In 2014, Reynolds sought to appeal his whole life sentence but was met with defeat. The following year, a serious case review castigated police officers, children's services personnel, and mental health professionals for their handling of Reynolds before the murder. The review highlighted systemic failures in interagency collaboration when Reynolds had previously come to law enforcement's attention 5 years earlier, following an incident where he attempted to strangle another girl at his residence. Georgia's parents expressed profound sorrow upon reading the report, lamenting the missed opportunities to intervene and prevent their daughter's tragic fate, stating, "Having lost Georgia to pure evil, we cried when we read this report and the failings of all agencies involved because it was so obvious that Reynolds was, if not one already, a murderer in the making. Georgia's death could have been prevented." Outside the courtroom, Mr. Williams expressed the family's profound grief, stating, "There is no sentence that we can ever say we're satisfied with because it'll never bring Georgia back. She's dead, she's gone physically and lives in our hearts." He emphasized the irreparable loss they experienced and lamented that, regardless of the length of Reynolds' prison term, he still retained the one precious gift he had denied their daughter: life. The one thing that will always get to us and cause us grief is the fact that even though Jamie Reynolds is serving a full life sentence, he still has life to hang on to, Mr. Williams remarked. Jamie Reynolds continues to serve his sentence in prison to this day. Georgia's mother, Lynette, has since penned their journey of grief in her book, Our Georgia, which delves into the family's profound sense of betrayal stemming from the failures that allowed Reynolds, with his disturbing fixation on snuff movies, to roam free and ultimately commit murder. Described as a powerful and moving memoir, the book serves as both a tribute to Georgia's memory and a poignant exploration of the aftermath of her tragic death. Georgia's tragic passing inflicted irreparable wounds upon those who cherished her, leaving behind an unfathomable void. Her absence stands as a poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of life and the importance of treasuring each precious moment with our loved ones. In the wake of her loss, the community united in solidarity, offering unwavering support to Georgia's grieving family and friends, providing a source of solace during their darkest days. During the Easter weekend in April 1992, Dana Ewell informed his relatives that he couldn't reach his parents, Dale and Glee Ewell, and his sister, Tiffany Ewell. Dana was still at the family's California beach house, where he had spent the weekend with his girlfriend and her father, an FBI agent. Upon the housekeeper's arrival for duty following the Easter weekend, the discovery she made in the house sent chills down her spine. The distressed housekeeper rushed to a neighbor's home, prompting an immediate call to the police, who arrived at the scene of the grim discovery of the 3 lifeless bodies. Initially presumed to be a botched burglary, it was soon determined that nothing had been stolen, leading authorities to conclude it was a planned murder. But who could have had a motive to kill this innocent family? Investigations ensued, eliminating several potential suspects until one unlikely person emerged as the prime suspect. This is the horrifying case of the Ewell family. Dale Ewell was born in Ohio during the Great Depression, instilling in him a strong work ethic and appreciation for every single dollar he earned. His upbringing in a family that endured economic hardship likely fueled his determination and ambition. After serving in the Air Force, Dale found success as a businessman, eventually becoming the president and owner of Western Piper Sales Incorporated, a company that specialized in selling small aircraft. He expanded his financial ventures by investing in several farms with profits from Western Piper. Dale had married Glee Michelle, a woman who taught in elementary school, worked as a translator for the CIA, and served on a commission at the State Bar of California. Together, they became parents, welcoming Tiffany in 1967 and Dana in 1971. Dale's achievements afforded the Ewell family a comfortable residence in Sunnyside, a beachfront property in Pajaro Dunes, as well as luxury automobiles and designer clothes. The primary source of the Ewells' income stemmed from the sale of light aircraft and extensive investments in the stock market. Having established his aviation enterprise successfully, Dale ventured into purchasing several farms, ultimately amassing significant wealth. Dale and Glee's combined net worth was estimated at $8 million, portraying them as the epitome of the American dream, even though they maintained a modest lifestyle. While Tiffany followed in her parents' footsteps, Dana diverged significantly from their path. While attending university, Dana Ewell portrayed himself as a prosperous entrepreneur, asserting that he was the source of his family's wealth. His fabricated narrative garnered attention from a local newspaper and even made its way into Ewell's school yearbook in 1990. Enrolled at Santa Clara University, Dana was preoccupied with notions of affluence and stylish living. He possessed a BMW and had access to funds enabling him to indulge in luxury items such as jewelry at his leisure. In contrast, his older sister Tiffany, who graduated from Fresno University, exhibited a more down-to-earth demeanor. From a young age, Dana displayed a tendency to lie a lot and fabricated many of his stories. Despite his exceptional intellect and education, Dana's aspirations transcended mere comfort, wealth, and a promising future. He shared his father's ambition, but lacked the determination to pursue his goals through legitimate means. Even during his time as a student at the University of Santa Clara, Dana felt compelled to concoct grandiose tales of his achievements and importance, which were entirely false. He proved to be a pathological liar, deceiving both faculty and peers into believing he was the head of a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Within his intricate web of lies, he portrayed himself as having begun his career as a stockbroker at the age of 18, subsequently transitioning to aircraft sales and ultimately ascending to the presidency of his own aircraft manufacturing company. The underlying tension within the father-son dynamic, characterized by dwindling communication, remained largely concealed from others. Dana's habit of fabricating outlandish tales about himself likely caused embarrassment for his father and could have led to conflicts between them. Despite Dale's upbringing in modest circumstances and his generous support for his children, it appeared that Dana harbored an insatiable sense of entitlement. Despite his privileged upbringing, Dana Ewell portrayed himself as a self-absorbed, egotistical individual primarily focused on his own wealth and social status. On Sunday, April 19, 1992, Sunnyside, California experienced mild, partly sunny weather, creating an ideal Easter Sunday afternoon atmosphere. Dale, aged 59, along with his 57-year-old wife Glee and their 24-year-old daughter Tiffany, had spent the Easter weekend at their beach house. Glee and Tiffany returned directly to Sunnyside by car, while Dale opted to fly his private plane to his hangar before driving home. Unbeknownst to them, upon their arrival home after their 2.5-hour journey, they were ambushed almost immediately upon entering. Tiffany was fatally shot in the head first, followed shortly by Glee, who was shot multiple times. 30 minutes later, as Dale arrived in the driveway, unaware of the tragedy that had befallen his family, he too was fatally shot as he opened the door from the garage into the house. The perpetrator, having stayed in the house, lay in wait for Dale, who had no idea that he had very little time left to live. 2 days later, 21-year-old Dana Ewell, the youngest member of the family, reached out to relatives and friends in Sunnyside, expressing his inability to reach his parents. Despite residing with his parents, Dana had spent the Easter weekend in San Francisco, around 200 miles away, with his girlfriend Monica Zent and her father John Zent, an FBI agent. On Tuesday, April 21, 1992, the Ewells' longtime housekeeper, Juanita Avenita, arrived for her usual work duties. Upon entering the kitchen, she discovered Tiffany's lifeless body lying face down in a pool of blood, her hands tucked beneath her. Distraught, the housekeeper sought help from a neighbor, prompting a call to the police. Meanwhile, Dana was still in Monterey, California, at the time of the murders. Upon being contacted by the authorities, his girlfriend's father promptly arranged for Dana to fly to Fresno. Dana appeared visibly distressed throughout the ordeal. Subsequently, the police embarked on an extensive investigation, dedicating numerous days to gathering evidence and interviewing witnesses. The crime scene was meticulously staged to resemble a failed robbery, but seasoned detectives recognized the signs of a premeditated burglary designed to make it appear as though the family stumbled upon the intruder and was subsequently murdered. Upon closer inspection, detectives noted several anomalies: the absence of weapons, bloodstains, footprints, or DNA evidence. Instead, the detectives observed a methodically planned and executed attack. The precision of the assailant's shots was remarkable, with only one miss, and the perpetrator had even retrieved the spent bullet casings. Inside the home, investigators discovered a box of 9mm ammunition purchased by Dale, later determined to have been used in the killings. Although the home gave the appearance of being ransacked, no valuable items were actually taken. There were no signs of forced entry through windows or doors, and the alarm, typically activated, had been deactivated. The scene seemed deliberately arranged to suggest a burglary in progress upon the Ewells' return. Investigators meticulously delved into the backgrounds of the victims, searching for any clues that might link to their homicides. Dale's past involvements, including selling airplanes for an individual later convicted of drug smuggling in the 1970s, and a problematic real estate transaction with his brother that threatened to cost investors millions, underwent thorough scrutiny. However, both incidents were eventually dismissed as having no connection to the murders. The police systematically eliminated all other potential suspects with motives, ultimately focusing their attention on Dana, who stood to benefit greatly from the tragedy. Being the sole survivor of the Ewell family and the primary beneficiary of the estate, Dana naturally became a person of interest. Despite having a seemingly airtight alibi, being in the company of his girlfriend and her FBI agent father at the time of the murders, police couldn't shake their suspicions about him. Dana's behavior did little to assuage their concerns, only serving to heighten their intuition regarding his involvement. Despite outward displays of distress over the murders, including offering rewards for information and even a $50,000 reward for the capture of the killer, Dana's grief appeared disingenuous. His emotional response to the brutal slaying of his own family seemed lacking, failing to convey the expected horror and anguish. Instead, his focus appeared to be primarily on matters related to his parents' wills and inheritance, rather than mourning the tragic loss of his loved ones. In a particularly unsettling move, he even invited a friend to tour the house, where bloodstains and spatter were still visible, displaying a disturbing lack of sensitivity. Allegedly, he even expressed disdain for the police investigation, claiming they were a bunch of dummies that would never solve the case. Thus began a prolonged and tense game of cat and mouse between Dana and the authorities, spanning 3 grueling years as they pursued every possible lead. Adding fuel to the escalating conflict, Dale's brothers reached out to authorities, accusing their nephew of wrongdoing. They alleged that during the reading of the wills, Dana had flown into a rage upon learning that trust provisions would restrict his access to the $8 million estate until he reached his 30s. According to their account, Dana had even slammed his fist on the desk and shouted, "How could he have done this to me?" referring to his father. The arrangement stipulated that his parents would cover his expenses until he turned 25, followed by receiving investment dividends until he reached 30. Half of it would be accessible to him at the age of 30, with the remaining half available at 35. Before the funerals for Dale, Glee, and Tiffany, the Ewell brothers took steps to hinder Dana's efforts to claim what he believed was rightfully his. However, Dana managed to secure around $300,000 from an insurance policy that either wasn't subject to the trust provisions or had been overlooked by mistake. Dana's uncles, his father's 3 brothers, were actively preventing him from inheriting any portion of his father's assets and wealth, causing significant frustration for Dana. Despite the mounting pressure from investigators closing in on him and accusations from members of his extended family implicating him in the murders as a ploy to gain control of the family estate, Dana continued to live his life seemingly unaffected. He continued to spend money recklessly, splurging on lavish gifts for his girlfriend Monica and even contributing towards her educational expenses. However, the source of his seemingly endless funds remained a puzzle. Suspecting that money played a significant role in the murders, investigators intensified their scrutiny. They uncovered evidence indicating that Dana had been embezzling money from various sources, including his grandmother's $400,000 trust account. By the time detectives intervened, the elderly woman had been left with a mere $2,000 to cover her ongoing care expenses at a nursing facility. The revelation that Dana had exploited his vulnerable grandmother for financial gain only solidified the police's suspicions about his character. Despite this damning discovery, authorities still needed conclusive evidence linking Dana to the murders before they could make an arrest. One of Dana's college acquaintances, who was usually captivated by his elaborate tales and his portrayal of a pampered, affluent lifestyle, was one Joel Radovchich. Joel found Dana intriguing, especially his wealth, success, and apparent ability to effortlessly attract the most attractive women. People around them were puzzled about what they had in common, as they were as different as night and day. While Dana sought higher social status, Joel was more interested in video games, firearms, and explosives. Despite their disparities, Joel's friendship with Dana provided him access to exclusive parties and introductions to desirable women. Shortly after the murders, Joel had dropped out of school. As mentioned earlier, within weeks of the Ewell family's tragic demise, he visited their home for a tour, eventually becoming Dana's roommate in the same residence. Joel's association with Dana marked a crucial turning point in the investigation. Both Dana and Joel began making unusual cash purchases, such as helicopter piloting lessons, despite Joel lacking an apparent source of income. As a result, both individuals came under surveillance, and investigators observed their communication, which was through sophisticated pagers and payphones. Authorities had Dana's pager cloned and wiretapped his landline. In May 1993, Joel was overheard by an officer conversing on a payphone where he was recorded saying, "They don't have evidence. They will try to catch you in a lie." On another occasion, he was heard advising, "Just play the game." And without a doubt, Dana continued playing the game, buying his girlfriend a new car and covering her law school tuition. After exhausting the insurance payout, as previously mentioned, he bilked $400,000 from his grandmother's account, leaving her with only $2,000 to cover her nursing home expenses. In 1994, investigators shifted their focus to forensic analysis, which revealed that the murder weapon was a specialized 9mm assault rifle manufactured in Colorado. Records from the company indicated that such a rifle had been purchased by one Ernest Jack Ponce shortly before April 1992. Interestingly, Jack happened to be a high school friend of Joel. Upon questioning, Jack initially denied buying the gun and later claimed it was purchased as a birthday gift for himself, unknown to Joel, and alleged that the gun had been stolen. The evidence was mounting against Dana and Joel. At one point, detectives attempted to unsettle Dana during their visit to his university dormitory, informing him of their belief that Joel was responsible for murdering his family. Dana remained silent, his face visibly drained of color. After the detectives departed, unaware they were being observed, Dana and his girlfriend Monica, who was present during the visit, hurriedly made a phone call to Radovcic. On March 2, 1995, the police took action and arrested Dana and Joel. Joining them were Peter Radovcic, Joel's brother, and Jack Ponce. Peter had struck a deal with authorities, offering testimony against his brother and Dana in exchange for immunity. He confessed to the police that he had crafted a homemade silencer and attached it to the murder weapon, disposed of the gun barrel, Joel's tennis shoes worn during the killings, and a collection of gun enthusiast magazines. Peter admitted to carrying out these actions in collaboration with Jack Ponce. Upon his arrest, Jack provided a contrasting narrative regarding the firearm. He confessed to purchasing it for Joel, but claimed ignorance about its intended use in the murders. Additionally, he corroborated Peter's account of their joint disposal of evidence. Jack, like Peter, received immunity in exchange for his testimony at trial. As a result of Peter and Jack's statements, the barrel of the murder weapon was located buried in a dirt field in Reseda. Dana and Joel, however, were obviously not offered any plea deals. Instead, they were charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and special circumstances, rendering them eligible for the death penalty. The trial didn't commence until late 1997. Dana and Joel, who had once been close enough to travel to Mexico together, share flying lessons, and even live in the same house where Dale, Glee, and Tiffany were killed, now had separate legal representation and adopted different stances during the trial. Prosecutors contended that Dana's motive stemmed from greed, alleging that he had promised Joel a portion of the inheritance. Dana's attorney argued for his innocence, claiming that Joel and Jack had planned and carried out the murders. Meanwhile, Joel's attorney, acknowledging the weight of the evidence against his client, aimed to save him from the death penalty. During his testimony, Jack Ponce revealed that he not only purchased the murder weapon for Joel and aided in its disposal, but that Joel had also provided him the details of the events that transpired on that fateful day in April 1992, which he was ready to share. Dana had approached Joel, pleading for a favor which was hard for him to reject. Acting as the executor of Dana's plan, Joel entered the Ewell residence with specific instructions. Having meticulously prepared by shaving his entire body, Joel waited patiently for 12 hours, perched on a plastic sheet to avoid leaving any trace of DNA behind, even a small eyelash. He was also instructed to ensure no bullet casings were left at the scene. Tiffany was the first victim, passing by Joel without noticing him before he fatally shot her in the back of the head. Glee, however, caught a glimpse of the assailant and was struck by a bullet. Despite attempting to flee to the office, bleeding profusely, she was pursued and mercilessly shot multiple times by Joel, who then straddled her. In a chilling moment, just before firing the fatal shot, Glee locked eyes with Joel, recognizing him as a friend Dana had introduced to the family a month prior. After fatally shooting Glee, Joel proceeded to change the magazines in the gun and don fresh gloves, awaiting Dale's arrival. He subsequently murdered Dale as well. However, during Jack's testimony recounting Dale's murder from Joel's perspective, he had made a crucial error by mentioning "and I saw the eye," which undermined the credibility of his testimony. The jury viewed his account with skepticism, suspecting greater involvement than he had admitted, but his immunity agreement shielded him from facing charges for the deaths. On May 27, 1998, 8 months after the trial commenced, the jury unanimously found Dana Ewell and Joel Radovcic guilty on all charges. However, they were unable to reach a consensus on the sentencing. While 2 votes spared Joel from the death penalty, Dana narrowly escaped the same fate by only 1 vote. They both received 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Dana was incarcerated at Corcoran State Prison, located 50 miles south of Fresno, where he found himself among fellow inmates including notorious figures like Charles Manson. Unfortunately, his grandmother, whom he had stolen from, passed away in 1999. In the years following his conviction, Dana professed to have undergone a spiritual transformation, embracing Christianity. He is registered on an online prison pen pal platform, where in part of his profile he states, "A finance graduate from Santa Clara University, I was beginning my career in investment banking when some extraordinarily painful events turned my world upside down." Meanwhile, Joel Radovchich was imprisoned at Mule Creek State Prison in Ione, about 2 hours south of San Francisco, which has housed other infamous inmates such as Tex Watson and Robert John Bardo. Jack Ponce went to law school, eventually becoming an attorney. Monica Zent ended her relationship with Dana, completed her law school studies, and established a thriving law practice. While Monica was scrutinized during the investigation, no evidence implicating her involvement could be uncovered, aside from her apparent reluctance to engage in the case that led to her boyfriend's convictions for murder and the fact that he had utilized some of the ill-gotten funds to contribute towards her law school expenses. Greed, entitlement, heartlessness, 3 words that perfectly described Dana Ewell. Dana's insatiable desire for wealth and his willingness to manipulate and betray those closest to him ultimately led to the brutal demise of his own family. It is sad and unfortunate what befell the victims of this tale at the hands of their avaricious and manipulative brother and son, along with those who aided him. On the fateful date of November 14, 1997, the vibrant life of 14-year-old Rena Verk met a heartbreaking and tragic end when a group of her peers lured her to a party. Ensnared by her peers under the guise of a party, little did she know that the festivity was a fabricated ruse concealing a sinister plot against her. As the night unfolded, her absence raised concern among her family, triggering an unsettling realization that she hadn't returned home, and no one could account for her departure from the ill-fated gathering. They reported her missing, but initially, the police did little to locate her due to her history as a runaway and her past troublesome behaviors. Tragically, her lifeless body was eventually discovered, and the dark truth behind her death would be uncovered by the investigators. This is the tragic case of Rena Verk. Rena Verk was born on March 10, 1983 in Saanich, a district municipality on Vancouver Island in British Columbia in Canada. She came from an extended family that traced its roots back to India. Rena's mother, Suman, hailed from an Indo-Canadian family, whereas her father, Manjit, was an immigrant from India. Rena's parents underwent a conversion from Hinduism and started embracing the beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses despite being in the Saanich community, where Sikhism was prevalent among Indo-Canadians. Growing up, Rena grappled with the persistent awareness of her outsider status, yearning for acceptance from her peers. Unfortunately, she became a target of relentless bullying due to her unconventional appearance and ethnic background. In a predominantly white school, her non-mainstream looks, coupled with being overweight and having brown skin, set her apart. Adding to her challenges, Rena faced the weight of adhering to her parents' strict religious principles, a stark contrast to her peers who were beginning to explore newfound freedom from their parental control. Concerns heightened when her parents discovered the prolonged bullying she endured since she started school, and suspected that it might have taken a toll on her mental well-being and that she was slipping into depression because of it. In May 1994, the family relocated, and this led to Rena transferring from Burnside Elementary School. Her parents hoped this relocation would put an end to the persistent bullying, and initially, it seemed to be working. Rena's spirits had been lifted, and she even forged a new friendship that brought her considerable joy. However, the positive turn took a downturn when the newfound friends shunned her and distanced themselves, reigniting the cycle of bullying. In 1996, Rena graduated from elementary school and started attending Colquitt's Middle School, where she met a new set of friends she deemed as the cool kids. This group defied curfews, indulged in alcohol and smoked as well, embodying the freedom Rena yearned for, a liberation from her strict parents and their religious regulations. Despite feeling embraced by her new circle, her parents disapproved, triggering a surge in rebellious behavior. In this turbulent phase, Rena's father, Manjit, recalled imparting a scripture to his daughter saying, Bad associations spoil useful habits. In 1996, at the age of 13, Rena received some advice from a friend suggesting a way to leave her home. The friend proposed that she could enter foster care by informing the police of alleged physical assault. Acting on this advice, Rena reported her parents for assault, but no charges were filed due to insufficient evidence. Consequently, she was temporarily removed from her family and resided with her grandparents, who believed her account. Taking a troubling turn, Rena falsely accused her father of sexual assault, causing significant trauma to him. In 1997, her father faced arrest on charges of sexually assaulting Rena, leading to his incarceration, awaiting arraignment. Ultimately, her father's charges were dismissed when she confessed to fabricating the assault allegations. Expressing discomfort in her grandparents' home, Rena was now then relocated to the foster home where she wanted to go. There, she formed connections and began mimicking her newfound friends who often smoked, always discussed gangs, where she even falsely claimed to be affiliated with one. After a while, Rena realized that living in a foster home didn't meet her expectations, as she still had responsibilities and a curfew. Therefore, she apologized to her parents and returned home. Later on, she decided to leave her parents' house again, opting to stay in a youth shelter before eventually being placed in government care. Over the following months, she found herself caught in a cycle, moving between her parents' home, foster care, and youth shelters. This tumultuous relationship with her parents, social workers, and government officials portrayed the struggles of a bewildered teenager. Desiring acceptance and friendship, she viewed her strict religious upbringing and overprotective parents as uncool or culturally out of touch, and she seemed willing to go to great lengths to gain peer approval. Middle school marked the most confusing and emotionally draining period of her life. In his 2008 book, Rena, A Father's Story, Manjeet Virk detailed the family's anguish in dealing with their daughter, expressing his belief that Rena manipulated social workers and family members alike. He lamented the lack of belief in their side of the story and the widespread acceptance of Rena's narratives. Yearning for acceptance from those who had previously rejected her, Rena eagerly sought their approval. The invitation to a party on November 14, 1997, likely stirred excitement in her as it presented an opportunity to socialize with the cool kids. The event took place during an overnight stay with her parents, initially behind a Saanich school, but later relocated to the nearby Craigflower Bridge after police intervention. Unfortunately, the party did not unfold as Rena had envisioned. At 10:40 p.m., just 20 minutes before her curfew, she reached out to her parents, notifying them that she was on her way home. Sadly, this phone call marked the last communication Rena's parents would have with her. At the Craigflower Bridge, a group of teenagers were smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol. Suddenly, several girls affiliated with a gang called the Shoreline Six targeted Rena. They subjected her to a brutal assault, physically beating her, placing a lit cigarette on her forehead, and even attempting to set her hair on fire. The attack persisted until one of the girls intervened and ordered the others to stop. Witnesses noted that the assault seemed unprovoked. After the initial attack was halted, Rena tried to escape and head home, but two teenagers, 15-year-old Kelly Ellard and 16-year-old Warren Glowatsky, pursued her. They dragged Rena to the other side of the Craigflower Bridge, where the violent onslaught continued with punches and kicks. Tragically, they held her head underwater until she succumbed to her injuries. Following her death, they removed her sweater and shoes, rolling her lifeless body into the water. Growing increasingly concerned as Rena's curfew passed by without her return, her parents initially speculated that she might have stayed at her grandparents' house for the night, but she wasn't there. She wasn't at the group home as well. They contacted one of Rena's friends, who revealed that she was still at the party when the friend left around 11 p.m. The next day, Rena's family reported her missing. However, the police response was slower due to her history as a runaway attributed to her past behavior. Rumors about a severe beating and a body found in the nearby gorge waterway circulated among the students at Colquitt's Middle School, attended by the teenagers involved. The members of the Shoreline Six group, aware of the situation, maintained a code of silence, vowing not to betray each other. Despite the prevalent rumors, an eyewitness eventually came forward to the police, stating that she had seen Kelly and Warren follow Rena after the beating. Surprisingly, A week passed before a police investigation was initiated after Rena was reported missing. Despite numerous witnesses and teachers hearing rumors about the incident, for some unknown reasons, none had reported the information to the police. Instead, it took a student coming forward as a witness to prompt police involvement. On November 21, 1997, Glowatsky and Ellard were arrested and charged with murder and aggravated assault. The members of the Shoreline Six faced aggravated assault charges, but their identities remained unknown and protected under Canada's Young Offenders Act. On November 22nd, a police helicopter flew over the Craigflower Bridge area, but no signs were observed until a ground search was conducted. The search revealed a body concealed in weeds, later identified as that of the missing teenager, Rena Verk. The forensic pathologist determined that drowning was the cause of death. Subsequent autopsy findings disclosed that Rena had sustained a significant injury, with head injuries severe enough to have been fatal even without drowning. At the time of her tragic demise, Rena was just 14 years old. In February 1998, the 6 girls involved in the initial attack on Rena were prosecuted in youth court, and as stated earlier, their identities remained shielded from the public. 3 of the girls admitted guilt to the charge of assault causing bodily harm, while the other 3 underwent a trial and were subsequently convicted of the same offense. Sentences varied, ranging from a 60-day conditional sentence to 1 year in jail. As for Ellard and Glowatsky, who were charged with Rena's murder, they faced a different legal process. Despite their ages, they were tried in adult court due to the severe nature of the crime. Warren Glowatsky had experienced a challenging upbringing marked by the absence of his alcoholic mother for a significant part of his life. Around the time of Rena's murder, he had found himself residing at a friend's house, following his father's departure from British Columbia to live in California without him. In April 1999, Glowatsky's trial commenced, and by June of the same year, he was found guilty of second-degree murder, resulting in a life sentence. As a minor at the time of the crime, he was eligible for parole after serving 7 years in prison. During his incarceration, Glowatsky discovered his Métis heritage, allowing him to involve tribal elders in his parole process. This process included various restorative justice measures involving meeting with Rena's family. In July 2006, he received unescorted temporary absences from jail and was ultimately released on full parole in June 2010. Rena's family did not oppose the parole request, as they believed Glowatsky demonstrated genuine remorse for his actions. In stark contrast, Kelly Ellard hailed from a more stable and traditional family that provided support during the trial. She was 15 years old at the time of Rena's murder. Despite her lawyer's request to have her case tried in youth court, the Supreme Court of Canada rejected this plea due to the level of violence involved in the crime and an apparent lack of remorse. Initially convicted of second-degree murder in March 2000, her conviction was overturned in January 2003 on grounds of an unfair trial. Released on bail while awaiting her appeal, Ellard had served 18 months of her life sentence. However, during this period of release pending a new trial, she faced charges of assault causing bodily harm for beating a 58-year-old woman in a Vancouver park. Her bail was revoked, and she was returned to prison by March 2004. In June 2004, Kelly Ellard faced a new trial. Witnesses testified that she had bragged about being responsible for Rena's death. Glowatsky asserted that he had witnessed Ellard drowning Rena, but Ellard's lawyer questioned Glowatsky's credibility, highlighting alleged inconsistencies in his initial statements to the police and during the trial. Throughout her trial, Ellard admitted to assaulting Rena, claiming it was in defense of her friends as she thought that she was going to hurt them. However, she vehemently denied committing murder. She shifted blame, asserting that Glowatsky and 2 other girls were the ones responsible for Rena's death. She expressed a resigned acceptance of an impending conviction, stating, "I'm obviously going to be convicted. You've got what you want. My life is ruined." Ellard showed no remorse for her actions and failed to disclose the motive behind the planned attack. After deliberating for 5 days, the jury reached an impasse, leading to a mistrial declared by the judge in July 2004 due to a deadlock among the jurors. In February 2005, Kelly Ellard faced a new trial, with Glowatsky once again serving as the key witness. Glowatsky reiterated his testimony, affirming that he and Ellard had assaulted Rena, leaving her lifeless in the water. On April 12, 2005, Ellard was convicted for the second time of second-degree murder and received a life sentence with no chance of parole for 7 years. However, in September 2008, the British Columbia Court of Appeal overturned Ellard's second-degree murder conviction, ordering a fourth trial on the grounds that the judge in her third trial had provided incorrect instructions to the jury regarding the testimony presented in the case. This legal saga finally concluded in June 2009 when the Supreme Court of Canada upheld her conviction for second-degree murder, putting an end to the prolonged legal proceedings. In 2017, Ellard was granted day parole, and by 2019, she received additional privileges such as overnight leaves and extended day parole. The Parole Board of Canada approved the continuation of Ellard's day parole. This decision drew significant media attention on July 14, 2020, as Ellard, who had initially received a life sentence, was now serving time on day parole. During her time on parole, Ellard changed her name to Kerry Sim, started a family with her spouse, with the couple getting 2 children, and adhered to the conditions of her parole, including abstaining from alcohol and drugs and maintaining no contact with Rena's family. The lingering question all this time, however, revolved around the motive behind the teenagers deciding to beat up Rena and end up murdering her. One supposed reason was revenge. Rena had previously lived in a group home with 2 of the girls involved in the assault, who accused her of stealing her phone book and making calls while spreading rumors. Another girl claimed she harbored resentment towards Rena for allegedly stealing her boyfriend. In the year 2000, when Rena's parents initiated legal action against the teenagers involved, as well as the British Columbia government and other parties, Rena's father stated, "Society doesn't make people take responsibility for their actions. This is one way to make them responsible." In 2012, Rena's mother addressed her daughter's tragic death and the detrimental impact of bullying on young individuals. She shared, "For so long, we were consumed with the legalities of dealing with our murdered child, the courts prolonging the cases, and it's kind of like you put your feelings and your grief on hold. And I'm finding that now I'm feeling more of the impact of losing Rena, the emotions and feelings. So actually, I'm struggling more now and missing her more. I'm sad to say that the severity and the frequency of bullying are increasing instead of decreasing. And also, I think we're all shocked by the means that young people are using to bully their peers, with cyberbullying and texting, all these things that were not there when Rena was killed." The tragic murder of Rena sparked a nationwide conversation on racism and bullying, particularly committed by young girls to other young girls they didn't like. In the aftermath of their daughter's death, Rena's parents sought to channel something positive from the tragedy. They initiated various anti-bullying campaigns and inclusion programs and actively advocated for the implementation of anti-bullying measures in British Columbia schools. Their outreach extended to speaking about bullying to students, teachers, and law enforcement professionals. Through their persistent efforts, the government of British Columbia introduced an anti-bullying program in schools across the province. In recognition of their impactful advocacy, Rena's parents received a prestigious accolade in 2009. They were honored with the Anthony J. Hume Award of Distinction in British Columbia for their dedication to crime prevention and community safety efforts. It is sad and unfortunate what Rena Verk faced throughout her life up until her final moments, and while her actions were troublesome, it is somewhat understandable given the common teenage desire to try to fit in, which can have both positive and negative consequences. Despite the challenges, her family continued to love her, even in the aftermath of false accusations and heinous deeds attributed to them. Their love for her remained unwavering, as they always wanted the best for her. Our deepest sympathies go out to the life that was lost too soon, and the grieving loved ones she left behind. In the charming streets of Macon, Georgia, the life of a promising young law student took a dark turn, unveiling a mystery that would grip the community. This is the story of Lauren Teresa Giddings, a narrative that began with dreams of a successful legal career but ended in a chilling tale of crime, deception, and tragedy. Lauren, a bright and ambitious law student, was on the verge of realizing her aspirations. However, the tranquil facade of her neighborhood held secrets that would unfold in a way that no one could have anticipated. Lauren Teresa Giddings was born on April 18, 1984, in Tacoma Park, Maryland, to William Bill and Karen Payne Giddings. Growing up in Laurel, a suburban community nestled between Washington and Baltimore, She shared her home with her two younger sisters, Caitlin and Sarah. Actively involved in the community, Lauren was a dedicated member of St. Mary of the Mills Catholic Church and completed her early education at St. Mary's School, attending from kindergarten through 8th grade. After graduating from Atholton High School in Columbia in 2002, Lauren left a mark through her participation in field hockey and softball. In pursuit of higher education, she ventured to Macon, Georgia in the same year, enrolling at Agnes Scott College. At Agnes Scott, she majored in political science, minored in religious studies, and enthusiastically participated in softball. Lauren achieved her graduation in 2006, becoming the first in her family to attend college, a source of immense pride for her parents. Caitlin, Lauren's sister, reflected on her transformation, saying, "She really didn't bloom until college. She was loud and fun. She wasn't as much like that in high school." It became evident that Lauren's confidence developed with age, and she was evolving into a brilliant, mature woman poised for a successful career. Following her undergraduate studies, she returned home, initially working for the National Center for Public Policy in Washington, D.C. Subsequently, she decided to venture into law. In 2008, Lauren embarked on her legal education at Mercer University's Walter F. George School of Law, where she took on the role of president of the Federalist Society. On May 14, 2011, she achieved her Juris Doctorate degree. Lauren aspired to be a public defender, driven by the desire to assist others. With her signature blonde hair and penchant for wearing pink, Lauren adored animals, particularly her cherished Pekingese dog named Butterbean, who was always by her side. Renowned for her popularity and kindness, friends and family recalled how Lauren consistently went out of her way to befriend social outcasts, possessing the unique ability to see the good in everyone. Perhaps it was this virtue that unfortunately made her the target of an incredibly heinous crime. In June 2011, Lauren found herself eagerly anticipating the future. At 27 years old, she reached a significant milestone by graduating from Mercer University in Georgia after 7 arduous years dedicated to the study of law. The journey had been marked by prolonged stress and intense exhaustion, but Lauren's unwavering determination to become a criminal lawyer fueled her commitment to see it through. With the finish line nearly in sight, there remained one last hurdle: the bar exam. Like many students, Lauren opted to stay in Macon after graduation instead of returning home to Baltimore. Her chosen residence was conveniently located just across from Mercer University, allowing her to immerse herself completely in her studies, free from any potential interruptions. Having recently graduated from law school, Lauren and her friends decided to indulge in one last night of celebration before diving into their bar exam preparations. On the Friday night of June 24, 2011, they gathered at a local bar for a joyous evening. Lauren opted to spend the night at her friend Ashley's house, joining other members of their friend group. During the night, Lauren shared with her friends her unsettling suspicion that she had a stalker. She recounted instances of returning home to find things in her apartment rearranged, a concern she had previously mentioned a year earlier to her sister. On a separate occasion, a friend had informed her of seeing someone spying on her through her window, equipped with a large stick topped with a camera aimed at her second-floor apartment. In an email sent to her boyfriend, David Vandiver, on the night before her tragic demise, Lauren expressed her fear that someone was breaking into her apartment. However, she reassured him that she would be moving out that week and was determined to endure the situation until then. In the same email, she conveyed her feelings of hopefulness and excitement about the future. During the night of celebration, Joe, Lauren's ex-boyfriend and a roommate of Ashley's, was in attendance. Lauren ultimately spent the night in Joe's room, but the details of what occurred behind the closed door remain unknown. The following morning, after the festivities, Lauren left Ashley's house. Although her friends didn't witness her departure, Joe claimed to have seen her leave. Regrettably, that marked the final instance her friends saw or heard from her. In the days following the celebration, a disconcerting silence surrounded Lauren as no one heard from her. Given her close ties with her family and regular communication, they initially attributed her absence to her prior warning that she would be immersed in studying for the bar exam and likely unavailable for the next few weeks. Lauren had even taken the step of leaving her beloved dog Butterbean at her parents' house to eliminate distractions and wholly concentrate on exam preparations. Consequently, her family wasn't overly alarmed when days passed without any communication from Lauren. However, as several days lapsed with continued silence, Lauren's sister grew increasingly concerned. Recalling the last text exchange on the night of the celebrations, her sister realized days later that Lauren had never responded, intensifying the sense of unease and prompting them to delve deeper into the mystery surrounding her sudden disappearance. On June 30th, 2011, Lauren's friend Ashley, growing increasingly worried as she hadn't received any responses to her texts over the past few days, took the initiative to check on Lauren. She went to Lauren's apartment and knocked on the door, but received no answer. Concern deepened when calls to Lauren's mobile phone went unanswered, a departure from her usual studious and focused routine at Ashley's house. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Ashley contacted Lauren's sister, Caitlin, to inquire if Lauren might be at her parents' house. To everyone's surprise and alarm, Lauren had never made it to her parents' home. Armed with a spare key to Lauren's apartment, Ashley, accompanied by a few friends, entered the residence. At this point, 4 days had passed without any communication from Lauren. Compounding the concern was the fact that Lauren was scheduled to move to her boyfriend David's place an hour away the next day. Upon entering the apartment, they discovered signs that Lauren had started packing but hadn't completed the task. Her phone, keys, and other personal belongings were left behind, and her car remained parked outside. Ashley and her friends waited for Lauren's return, but to their dismay, she did not reappear. The mysterious circumstances surrounding her absence deepened the sense of unease and raised more questions than answers. Upon discovering Lauren's unsettling disappearance, Ashley promptly contacted Lauren's family to convey the distressing news. Lauren's father, fueled by concern, embarked on an 11-hour drive to his daughter's apartment in a desperate attempt to locate her. Simultaneously, the police were notified, and Lauren's case transitioned into a missing person investigation. Given the circumstances, David, her boyfriend, and Joe, her ex-boyfriend, drew immediate scrutiny as potential suspects, particularly since Joe was the last person known to have seen her. Despite Joe's cooperative stance and assertion that Lauren left early for a pool visit, suspicions lingered. The police delved into Lauren's credit card statements, uncovering an entry fee for a pool at a country club that morning, as well as a receipt from a fast food restaurant later that Saturday night. The investigation took a distressing turn when police examined Lauren's computer and discovered an email she had sent to David. In the email, she expressed her anxiety, believing that someone had attempted to break into her apartment the night before while she was away, an ominous revelation that heightened concerns about her well-being. Upon entering Lauren's apartment, the police encountered an absence of signs indicating a struggle or forced entry, and no items were reported stolen or missing. Despite these initial observations, a sense of foreboding prompted the police to escalate their investigation. Seeking potential evidence, a crime lab tech team was brought in to utilize luminol within the apartment, hoping to detect traces of blood. The critical breakthrough occurred in Lauren's bathroom, where the luminol reacted vividly. The substance illuminated the space like a Christmas tree, revealing blood splatters covering the bathtub, smeared across the floor, and sprayed up the walls. This distressing revelation left the police with a chilling realization. Their search was no longer for a missing person, but for a potential crime scene involving a body. While at the location, detectives were struck by an unpleasant odor, prompting one of them to remark, "While we were standing there, the wind started to turn. Immediately, I smelled an odor that I was familiar with. We all smell things in life that smell bad, and that of a body, or a decomposing body, is one of the worst things you'll smell. But it has a very distinctive smell." Following the unmistakable smell of death, the detectives traced it to a sizable barrel containing 2 trash bags. The first bag contained only refuse, offering no breakthrough. However, the second bag held a gruesome discovery, the torso of a white female. The body, wrapped in plastic, had been dismembered, with the head, legs, and arms missing. Faced with this horrifying scene, the police opted not to immediately inform the family, as they hadn't conclusively identified the remains as belonging to Lauren Giddings. Unfortunately, news of the torso's discovery leaked to a media outlet, sparking widespread awareness. Subsequent DNA analysis later confirmed the tragic truth. The body indeed belonged to the law student, Lauren Giddings. The brutal murder of a cherished member of the Mercer Law School community was shocking in itself. However, as friends began to share their accounts, a disconcerting pattern emerged. Recollections surfaced, revealing that Lauren had, with a sense of unease, hinted at being stalked over the past year. In conversations with friends, she confided in the unsettling belief that someone was covertly observing her in her apartment, going so far as to rearrange things when she was away. These revelations added an alarming layer to the tragedy, underscoring the distress Lauren had experienced leading up to the heinous crime. As news spread that most of Lauren's body had been discovered, a wave of panic swept through the community, amplifying concerns that a potential killer was in the vicinity. Reporters descended upon the apartment complex, seeking interviews and adding to the growing unease. Responding to the escalating situation, the police expanded their initial search from the immediate neighborhood to a radius of 10 blocks around the apartments, hoping to uncover crucial clues to solve the homicide. Over the following week, the search extended to various locations, including in and around the apartments, along the Okmulgee River, at Macon's landfill, and in drains and sewers near the crime scene, all in a desperate attempt to locate the missing body parts. With 16 apartments in the block where Lauren resided, news stations swarmed the crime scene, eager to gather information. Among those interviewed was Stephen McDaniel, Lauren's next-door neighbor and fellow law student. Though perceived as somewhat eccentric, Stephen appeared genuinely concerned for his neighbor and classmate during the interviews. During a field interview, a reporter questioned Stephen about his reaction to the discovery of a body in the area, and his response was nothing short of peculiar. Upon hearing the word body, Stephen entered a disoriented state, repeating the word while blinking and staring off into space. Concerned by his unusual reaction, the police decided to bring him in for questioning. Throughout the interrogation, Stephen remained dissociated for a considerable period. When the police requested to inspect his apartment, Stephen consented. During the search, they uncovered a stack of condoms in his dresser, a discovery that contradicted his previous claim to investigators that he was a virgin saving himself for marriage. In response, Stephen asserted that he had stolen the condoms from various apartments he had burglarized. Consequently, the police detained him on burglary charges. Further investigations revealed that Stephen possessed a master key to all the apartments in the complex, including one for Lauren's residence. In a startling turn, the police discovered a hacksaw in the maintenance room with traces of Lauren's blood on it. The maintenance man, when interrogated, claimed no knowledge of the saw. Subsequently, the police found the hacksaw's packaging in Stephen's apartment, leading them to suspect that, with his master key, he had planted the hacksaw in the maintenance room. In addition to the alarming discoveries, the police stumbled upon a pair of panties belonging to Lauren during their search of Stephen's apartment. Further intensifying the evidence against him, they uncovered numerous disturbing internet blog posts written by Stephen, detailing themes of torture and violence towards women. To compound matters, a flash drive was found containing explicit child pornography. The investigation revealed that Stephen possessed a trove of Lauren's photos on the flash drive, coupled with evidence suggesting he frequently visited her social media pages. His search history depicted a disturbing pattern, wherein he engaged in viewing violent pornography while simultaneously perusing Lauren's pictures on social media. The extent of his obsession became clearer when the police managed to recover deleted footage secretly filmed by Stephen, capturing moments of Lauren's life from an external vantage point. The sheer volume of evidence surpassed 200 pieces, collectively painting a vivid picture that pointed towards Stephen McDaniel as the likely perpetrator of Lauren's murder. It became evident that he had been persistently stalking Lauren for an extended period, amassing numerous images taken without her knowledge,
video footage from inside her apartment, and indications of obsessive scrutiny of her Facebook and LinkedIn pages. While Lauren had maintained a friendly relationship with Stephen, it became apparent that he harbored an intense obsession with her, even though her feelings towards him were not reciprocated. There was a moment when Stephen gathered the courage to ask Lauren out on a date, only to face a polite refusal from her. Unbeknownst to Lauren, suspicions lingered in her mind about activities occurring in her apartment, unaware that Stephen played a role in the unsettling events unfolding around her. Upon his arrest, Stephen McDaniel was brought in for questioning at the police station. However, upon arrival, he appeared to be a mere semblance of the man who had engaged with the news anchor. Throughout more than 2 hours of interrogation, he remained in a trance-like state, offering minimal responses and consistently denying any involvement. While some suspected this behavior to be an act,
Others pondered the possibility of him experiencing a mental breakdown. The fortuitous delay in the garbage collection that morning was the sole reason Lauren's body had not been discarded with the trash. During his interview, Stephen, seemingly unaware of this delay, mistakenly believed that Lauren's body had already been disposed of, alleviating the urgency of the situation in his mind. In August, a mere month after the discovery of Lauren Giddings' remains, Stephen McDaniel faced first-degree murder charges. Despite maintaining his innocence for several months, he eventually altered his plea from not guilty to guilty, recognizing the overwhelming evidence against him. During the trial, Stephen attempted to mount his defense, asserting that his rights were violated during his arrest. Drawing on his legal education, he accused the police of employing improper interrogation techniques and intimidation, and claimed to have been denied adequate medical care while asserting that he was insulted and yelled at. As part of the plea deal, Stephen agreed to provide the court with a detailed account of the events on the night of Lauren's murder. In exchange for his cooperation, the charges related to child pornography and burglary were slated to be dropped. In his confession, Stephen detailed that on the fateful night, he waited for Lauren to fall asleep before using his master key to enter her home around 4:30 a.m. Once inside, he silently entered her bedroom and stood observing her as she slept. However, an unfortunate creak from a squeaky floorboard startled Lauren awake when he approached her bed. Stephen recounted, "Lauren saw me and said, very calmly, 'Get the f*** out.' He continued to describe how, in response to her resistance, he grabbed her around the throat, leading to both of them tumbling from the bed to the floor. During the struggle, Lauren's attempt to escape resulted in her legs and lower body becoming wedged under the bed, thwarting her efforts to get away or kick him. Despite Stephen's attempt to present a version of self-defense, the compelling evidence and his admission to the murder were sufficient for both the jury and the judge to render a verdict. Additionally, Stephen disclosed that he had repeatedly asked Lauren out, and each time she rejected his advances due to being in a happy relationship and lacking any romantic interest in him. Unable to cope with the rejection, he began to hatch a sinister plan for the horrific murder. Amid the assault, Stephen had concealed his identity with a mask, but during the struggle, Lauren managed to remove it, revealing his face. Upon recognizing him, she uttered, "Stephen, please stop." Regrettably, her plea went unanswered. Stephen recounted that it took approximately 15 minutes for Lauren to succumb to the attack. After her demise, he dragged her lifeless body into the bathroom, exited her apartment, and returned to his adjoining residence. During the entire day, he occupied himself on the internet before revisiting Lauren's apartment in the evening, armed with a hacksaw. It was then that he proceeded to behead and dismember her. In a chilling disclosure to his lawyer, Stephen admitted to sitting down and meticulously severing each of Lauren's fingers, subsequently flushing them down the toilet. The remaining body parts were placed in black trash bags and dispersed across various dumpsters. Tragically, some of these dumpsters had already been emptied, rendering it impossible to recover Lauren's body. In attempting to discern the motive behind the attack, it became evident that Lauren was scheduled to relocate from her apartment the following day. This impending move meant that Stephen would no longer have her presence in his life, an outcome he seemingly could not bear. On April 21, 2012, Stephen McDaniel was convicted and handed a life sentence, with the potential for parole after 30 years. Despite his attempt to appeal the sentence in 2018, the Richmond County Superior Court dismissed his appeal. He is slated to be ineligible for parole until the year 2041. Lauren's untimely end left a profound impact on her family and friends. The pain they carry serves as a somber reminder of the heinous crime that shattered the peace of their community. In the aftermath, the community came together to support one another, to remember Lauren's vibrant spirit, and to advocate for safety and awareness in the face of the unexpected. The Lauren Teresa Giddings story is a powerful testament to the resilience of a community in the face of darkness. May her memory inspire conversations about safety, trust, and the collective responsibility we bear for the well-being of those around us.